This is Cades Cove. Welcome to one of the most beautiful places in the Smoky Mountain National Park. You have got to come here. Not only is it beautiful, but this place has so much history. It's the ancient land of the Cherokee. It was founded around 1827 when the white settlers kicked them out and threw them onto the Trail of Tears. And they founded it into a amazing place where they grew wheatgrass and sugar gum and a famous cornmeal. So let's go check this place out and learn about how incredible the people here were and how resourceful they were as well. In 1927, the National Park Service began buying out all of the houses and lands in the area so they could turn it into a national park. Kermit Coghorn was the last of these residents in Cades Cove who died at the ripe old age of 86 in 1999. Cades Cove is an 11-mile, one-way, highly trafficked loop, so if you decide to go, you're gonna have to commit. You can also bike it and hike it, but mainly I wanted to tell you, be like this bug. Just relax. It's gonna be a long, gorgeous, fun-filled day. Let the breeze blow in your antennas and your wings, if you will. And just chill, dude. Your first stop after the orientation shelter, where they have camping and a whole bunch more, is the John Oliver Place. This was built in 1820. He was one of the first settlers of Cades Cove, and this building is really interesting because it's built without any nails or pegs. Imagine what it would have been to live like here, with no refrigerator, no electricity, having to entertain yourself all the time, and grow every single scrap and morsel that you wanted to eat. Be sure to check out culturetrekking.com and the link in the description box below where I go into detail on all of this and more, especially camping, hiking, and all the little tidbits you won't see in this video. Our next stop is the Primitive Baptist Church, built in 1887. So this is the Primitive Baptist Church, and this cemetery over here still holds the remains of some of the early settlers. And if we go inside, some people say you'll be able to see a handprint in pine sap. Good luck looking for it. I couldn't find it. It's odd to think about what these people who lived here had gone through. Some of them went to the Civil War and came back wounded. The town was divided. Then you had the Spanish flu. If they could come back from the dead, it would be interesting to talk to one of them and see what life was really like back then. Mornings are the absolute best time to come to Cades Cove, right when the gates are opening, because you get that misty blue Smoky Mountain National Park in the background. You're able to see the wildlife at that time of day because it is cooler, and that's when they're out and about. You miss most of the traffic, especially if you're a biker. You want to go on a Wednesday because they let you in first. Just remember to be patient and to not just stop in the middle of the road. Try to find a little pullout to go to first so you don't hold up all the cars behind you. Next up, the Methodist Church. This is one of the first Methodist churches built in the area. It was built in the early 1800s by a man who was a blacksmith for the local area. Now, most people think that these two doors that were built is so that the male and female had to enter on two different doors, but that's not actually the case. The blacksmith borrowed plans from another church where that was part of their worship. He built this church in 115 days for $115 and then ended up becoming the minister here. Let's go to the next church, the Missionary Baptist Church, friends. This church was founded in 1839, and it was built because they believed in missionary work, and they were also known Confederate sympathizers. Are you a preacher man today? I personally wouldn't be going to this church, but to each their own. Next up, Elijah Oliver's Place. The Elijah Oliver Place is considered one of the easier hikes here to do in Cades Cove. It's about a half mile on relatively flat ground through a gorgeous wooded area. This is Elijah Oliver's place. He was the son of John Oliver, born in 1824. He moved into this cabin after the Civil War from probably a really trying time. So when you come here, you have to kind of imagine yourself living in the early 1800s because they didn't have electricity. How did you keep your food? How did you keep the corn through the winter? So this is probably the best place to come and learn about how it is to live during that time period. And then they have a cabin or a house where they kept the ham, kind of like a cold storage. If you want to come and visit this place, I highly recommend it. The scenery is gorgeous. So let's go check some of these places out in here. These buildings are fabulously preserved. There is plenty of hiking in Cades Cove. Here are some of the favorite trails here in Cades Cove. Now, I haven't been on all of them, but I listed them here so that you could check them out according to your hiking level and expertise. Please note that if you're going to try some of these trails, there isn't any cell phone service up here. So if you go alone, make sure you have a way to contact someone should you get hurt. Or just be smart and go with a buddy. One of the trails that is not on the map is actually Wet Bottom Trail. It is an offshoot from the Elijah Oliver place that takes you to the back entrance of Abram Falls. Now, it doesn't take you to Abram Falls, but it takes you to the trailhead. There's also a great little water spot where you could bring a swimsuit and cool off on those hot summer days. We're gonna make a quick stop at Abram Falls Trailhead. So while you're in Cades Cove, be sure to stop at the end of the loop, right here by Abrams Falls behind me, where this is the most popular trail in the whole park. Abram Falls is a heavily trafficked out and back trail, very popular place to go take a picture of a 25-foot waterfall. Now this trail is rated as moderate on all trails and has a 629-foot gain in elevation on the way up. If you go in this spring, you're going to be greeted with the most incredible biodiversity blooming throughout the park. Let's head over to Cable Mill area and Visitor Center. So this area over by the Visitor Center at the end of the loop is the largest collection of 1800s buildings in the area. They still have a corn mill that you can go see live demonstrations with, and then go to the Visitor Center and buy your own bag of cornmeal that was ground right here in Cades Cove. This is the trough they still upkeep that leads all the way to the corn mill to keep the wheel going that grinds the corn. Pretty cool. So the reason this is called an cantilever barn is because of the way that it's constructed, with the weight kind of pushing inwards. They would bring the carts of hay right through the center, and then a baler would be up here putting hay up into the barn. Underneath the barn, they would store all of their farm equipment. If you time your trip right, you could also see the sorghum mill in action. This was used to make molasses, was often a social event, and you cut the sorghum, you strip it outside, then the juice is squeezed from the canes and boiled down to molasses. You can actually buy a jar in the visitor center as well. We were running out of daylight and time, so we decided to skip Henry Whitehead's house. The Henry Whitehead house is a transition house from a jointed to a frame house. We made a quick pit stop at the Don Lawson House, which was built in 1856 before sawmills were ever invented. Let's tippy-toe on over to the Tipton House. So this is the smoke shed, and then the house, and then we just saw the corn crib and the cantilever barn. Colonel Ham Tipton, he served in the Mexican War. His home was built in the early 1870s. His daughters were teachers in the community. This is a great example of frame construction. It allowed for sturdier attics and sturdier constructions. This property actually has a bee gum house, smokehouse, woodshed, blacksmith's shop, corn crib, and an incredibly tall chimney. I mean, who doesn't want an incredibly tall chimney? Last but not least, at Carter Shields' cabin. This is Carter Shields' cabin. He was actually wounded in the war and then ended up building this house. He only lived here for about 11 years, but it's a good example of a framed house. It looks like it's just sealed up right now, so we're not going to go explore it. Be sure to stay tuned because in the next video, I'm going to teach you all about how to capture the best wildlife in Cades Cove, how to photograph black bears, the setting you use for your camera, and all sorts of good tips. Well, that's it for Cades Cove. Thank you so much for being here and coming on this exciting journey through the 1800s with me. I will see you in the next video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with a friend because more the merrier. See you in the next one, y'all. Bye. Almost 7. Oh, sorry. Let's do it again.